The top stories tonight in Y News. No approved clinical trial for a potential COVID-19 vaccine has begun in the Philippines, according to the DOH.
Interagency attributes improved COVID-19 daily case record to a balanced distribution of doctors to patients in the municipality while providing necessary medication to COVID-19 patients, including a Chinese herbal drug called Yanhua Qingwen.
Senator Amy Marcos renews her support for the establishment of an OFW department, but because of the ongoing pandemic, she suggests to start with a just commission or administration that will supervise the needs of overseas Filipino workers.
Takot rin ako sa department. Ang aking rekomendasyon, commission o administration na lamang. Kasi sa sahod pa lang ng USEC, natetense na ako, 5 USEC, ang mahal-mahal. Na parang pinalawak mo yung POEA, tapos unti-unti kung kailanganin ng department, tsaka na lang gawin buong department.
The Energy Regulatory Commission imposes a 19 million peso fine on Meralco due to bill shock, while a consumer group proposes to distribute the 19 million peso fine on Meralco to 50,000 complainants. But another group argues the penalty is small compared to what the ERC could have done for the public.
German Chancellor Angela Merkel warns that the virus situation in the country will become more challenging in the coming months as winter approaches.
And Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe announces his resignation.
Good evening, Philippines and the world. Today is Friday, August 28, 2020. I am Horlene Delgado. Join us in the next hour as we deliver today's top stories around the country and the world.
We are also seen in 1,935 satellite monitoring centers nationwide and via live streaming worldwide through the UNTV News and Rescue social media accounts and our website, untvweb.com. I am William Theo.
First in the news, the Health Department explains there is no approved vaccine clinical trial that has started in the Philippines. Our health correspondent, Aiko Miguel, details why.
The Philippine government continues to negotiate with other countries for the discovery of a potential vaccine against COVID-19. According to the Department of Health, there has no approved vaccine clinical trials yet in the Philippines. The DOH is still studying the result of phases 1 and 2 clinical trials of Sputnik developed by Russia.
We are still having this confidentiality disclosure agreement. Mga ganitong mga klaseng mga legal documents because we are going to get a confidential document coming from another country, like for example from Russia.
The DOH reiterates that before the Sputnik vaccine trial could start, in which 100 Filipinos will participate, a vaccine expert panel should review and study the clinical trial phases of the potential vaccine.
Yung kanilang phase 1 and phase 2 para pag-aralan ng ating vaccine experts panel. So maraming pinagdadaanan ng mga legalities para wala po tayong magiging issue when we do this.
According to the DOH, the potential vaccine from China, Sinovac, is not yet available. Sinovac was developed in partnership with Indonesia, but according to Indonesian President Joko Widodo, Sinovac can be available and can be distributed by mid-2021 in coordination with China. The DOH emphasizes that all clinical trials that will be conducted in the Philippines should go through the regulatory process of the FDA. The vaccine expert panel led by the Department of Science and Technology and the DOH should also approve the clinical trial before it can be conducted in the country.
Sa bakuna, kailangan na itatry mo yan sa different races. Kasi iba-iba po ang epekto sa based on experience and scientific studies sa iba't ibang races ng iba't ibang bakuna. So ang gusto po ng Pilipinas, and of course our experts are recommending na yung clinical trial mangyari din po dito sa Pilipinas para ma-try din out natin dito mismo sa local setting natin.
Aiko Miguel, UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people, we give glory to God.
Meanwhile, the country's Food and Drug Administration clarifies the use of Lianhua Qingwen, a Chinese herbal drug. Joan Nano tells us why.
The local government of Cainta Rizal says that the number of daily COVID-19 cases in the town is decreasing. Cainta Rizal Mayor Kit Nieto attributes this development to a balanced distribution of doctors to patients in the municipality. Mayor Nieto cites they have been able to manage positive coronavirus cases by assigning at least 40 doctors to monitor the patients. Some of them are volunteers. The Cainta LGU has also been able to provide the necessary medication to their COVID-19 patients, including a Chinese herbal drug called Lianhua Qingwen, which has recently been approved by the country's Food and Drug Administration.
We were able to distribute as well yung mga medicines na sinasuggest nila na ibigin na rin namin sa home quarantine. Pati yung Chinese herbal med na in-approve na ng FDA, we distributed it. Nag-suggest sila na bigyan ko ng mga pulse oximeters yung mga pasyente for self-monitoring.
But the mayor clarifies the Chinese herbal drug can only be given to a patient depending on the doctor's prescription. The local chief executive is confident that Lianhua Qingwen will not have an adverse effects on patients if used in accordance with the recommendation of medical experts.
It's an FDA-approved supplement. There's already a license for it to be distributed. It's actually being prescribed under strict doctor's advice. Meron mga doktor na naka-assign for them to take it. They are mature enough to check on it and just make sure that it is something that has efficacy and is something that will not be detrimental to their health.
The FDA has earlier explained that Lianhua Qingwen is not registered in the Philippines as a medication for COVID-19. Instead, it can be used to treat other ailments such as lung toxins.
Dito sa Pilipinas, approved natin siya as traditional used herbal product that helps remove the heat toxin, invasion of the lungs, including symptoms such as fever, aversion to cold, muscle soreness, stuffy, and runny nose. Kasi yung mga traditional medicine, usually ang tinitreat niyan yung symptoms at saka ina-alleviate yung symptoms at hindi siya talaga directed to one particular illness.
The FDA further explains that if the Chinese herbal drug is used to cure mild and moderate COVID-19 patients, it must undergo clinical trials and studied by experts in various countries. Lianhua Qingwen can be purchased only at authorized pharmacies with a doctor's prescription, and it is prohibited to sell Lianhua Qingwen online according to the FDA. Joan Nano, UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people, we give glory to God.
The Interagency Council for Traffic visited the bus terminal at the Valenzuela Gateway Complex today. Ray Pelayo tells us why.
The Interagency Council for Traffic or IAC inspected how safety and health protocols are being implemented on public utility vehicles today at the Valenzuela Gateway Complex. From the entrance, passengers must use the hand washing area and foot bath to cleanse their hands and footwear. Security guards check the passengers' body temperatures. They also gave free hand sanitizers before passengers got on the bus. Bus drivers and passengers should wear a face mask and face shield. IACT also inspected if physical distancing was observed inside the bus.
In spite of the fact na nga po sa pagigigpit natin tumataas pa rin yung bilang, pero in one way or another, alam po namin itong ginagawang to malaking tulong to sa pag-control ng pagkalat ng COVID.
Passengers must also disclose their information which could be used for contact tracing. IAC personnel also randomly inspected taxis and jeepneys in Caloocan City if the mandated health protocols are properly observed. But some drivers and passengers were caught not wearing a face shield, so authorities gave them a verbal warning. IAC said they will strictly implement health measures in their subsequent inspections. Ray Pelayo, UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people, we give glory to God.
Meanwhile, the Department of Health is still validating 22 COVID-19 death cases among healthcare workers. Aiko Miguel tells us why.
Based on the DOH August 26 report, a total of 6,735 healthcare workers have been infected with SARS-CoV-2 in the country. 6,070 have recovered while 40 succumbed to COVID-19. Under the Bayanihan to Heal as One Act, all healthcare workers who died and who suffer severe and critical condition due to COVID-19 should receive compensations, but the said law expired on June 25. Upon the approval of Bayanihan 2 or the Bayanihan to Recover as One Act, the DOH will continue the distribution of aid to healthcare workers. But the Health Department still has to wait for President Duterte's approval of Bayanihan 2 to proceed with the distribution of compensation. According to Undersecretary Maria Rosario Vergere, the DOH has distributed 1 million pesos for healthcare worker who succumbed to COVID-19 through the budget allotted through Bayanihan 1. But health officials are still validating some cases to make sure their deaths were caused by COVID-19.
Meron na tayong 31 na na-release na for the 1 million for the checks of these healthcare workers. And meron tayong ini-evaluate na 22. This undergoes validation yung sa amin before we can really tag as death. Yung sa kanila raw, and then they pass it on to us for verification.
Aside from this, they have also distributed 100,000 pesos financial assistance for more than 30 healthcare workers who were in severe and critical condition due to COVID-19.
We were already able to release 36 checks amounting to 100,000 each. And meron pa tayong additional na 53 na ina-evaluate pa rin ang kanilang mga dokumento sa ngayon just to verify.
Based on the DOH report, most of the healthcare workers who contracted COVID-19 are doctors and nurses aged 60 and above and oftentimes with comorbidity. The DOH once again calls on the public to be more responsible in observing the health protocols because everyone's compliance will help the medical community breathe, so to speak, and prevent hospitals from getting overwhelmed with COVID-19 cases. Aiko Miguel, UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people, we give glory to God.
Meanwhile, the country's Department of Health says that 3,999 new cases were reported today, based on tests done by 101 out of 110 laboratories. Most of the new cases were reported in the National Capital Region with more than 2,000, while Laguna, Cavite, Batangas, and Cebu all recorded more than 100 new cases each. Now, the cumulative case count in the country reaches almost 210,000. There are more than 71,000 active cases, of which 91.2% are in mild condition. More than 2.3 billion individuals in the country have been tested for the virus. We have lost 91 more patients. But through our fervent prayers, medical interventions, and sacrifices of our medical frontliners, 510 more people have won their battle against the invisible enemy. That brings the total recoveries nationwide to 134,474. Thanks be to God.
And let's now take a closer look at the updated count of coronavirus cases around the world. The COVID-19 pandemic has now reached a total of close to 24.5 million confirmed cases in 188 countries, regions, and sovereignty. The fast-spreading disease has claimed more than 832,000 lives worldwide, while more than 60 million patients across the globe have recovered from the new coronavirus infection, thanks be to God. The Overseas Workers Welfare Administration offers education assistance for college-level dependents of repatriated overseas Filipino workers. Vincent Arboleda tells us why.
Labor Secretary Sylvester Bello III believes that education is a legacy that overseas Filipino workers can give to their family members. That is why the Overseas Workers Welfare Administration, or OWWA, wants to help repatriated OFWs in this aspect. OWWA has launched Project EASE, or Educational Assistance Through Scholarship in Emergencies. Through the program, qualified college-level dependents of repatriated OFWs who are active OWWA members can get a 10,000 peso assistance per year for a maximum of 4 years. To avail of the program's benefits, one must complete the requirements. These include a fully accomplished application form that can be accessed through OWWA's website, east.owwa.gov.ph, valid passport, flight ticket or boarding pass as proof of repatriation, Official receipt are proof of OWWA membership, dependent's proof of relation to the OFW, such as a birth certificate and a copy of the dependent's grades. The Department of Labor and Employment has allotted 400 million pesos to OWWA for the implementation of Project Ease. According to data from DOLE, since early May until August 12, around 140,000 overseas Filipino workers have been repatriated amid the COVID-19 pandemic. Vincent Arboleda, UNTV, News and Rescue. We serve the people. We give glory to God.
During his fifth State of the Nation address, President Rodrigo Duterte once again called for the passage of a measure that would create a new department for the overseas Filipino workers. The House of Representatives has passed a measure in March which seeks to create the Department of Filipino Overseas and Foreign Deployment. However, similar bills remain pending at the Senate. Senator Amy Marcos renews her support for the establishment of an OFW department. But because of the ongoing pandemic, she suggests to start with just a commission or administration that will supervise the needs of the OFWs. This as the lady senator worries that establishing a whole new department would result to greater costs. Marcos explains they can start with the expansion of Philippine Overseas Employment Administration with additional support from the Department of Foreign Affairs and the Departments of Social Welfare and Development.
Takot rin ako sa department. Ang aking rekomendasyon, commission o administration na lamang. Kasi sa sahod pa lang ng USEC, attendance na ako, 5 USEC, ang mahal-mahal. Na parang pinalawak mo yung POEA, tapos unti-unti kung kailanganin ng department, tsaka na lang gawin buong department.
The lady senator also calls for wider and clearer job policies from the Department of Labor and Employment for job generation or employment of displaced OFWs who have been repatriated due to the COVID-19 pandemic. She says it would be best if the government offered various jobs aside from giving startup capital for putting up businesses, noting that there are some OFWs who are being victimized by scammers. Next month, the Overseas Workers Welfare Administration or OWWA is set to roll out its group livelihood program for OFWs wherein they can borrow 150,000 pesos to 1 million pesos as business capital.
Kinakailangan, bigyan mo ng options, yung iba-ibang options. Yung iba na talagang natatakot, mag-empleyado muna siya sa lokal kahit maliit ang sahod para lang ma-adjust ulit kasi ilang taon na wala eh. So we get their skills. Tapos sa kabila nun, meron rin tayong directory, kumbaga, ng mga lokal na handa mag-mentoring, yun nga, hawak kamay muna, or else employ sila outright.
Foreign Affairs Secretary Teodoro Teddy Boy Locsin Jr. will recommend ending contracts with Chinese firms involved in the militarization and reclamation in the West Philippine Sea. Rosalie Cos explains why.
Once their involvement in the reclamation and the militarization of the disputed territories is proven, Foreign Affairs Secretary Teodoro Locsin will recommend the termination of the contracts of Chinese firms dealing with the country. According to the country's foreign affairs chief, it is consistent on our part to terminate any contract with them. He warns, however, these Chinese companies could sue the country. This comes following the United States of America's recent action of imposing sanctions on 24 China-owned companies involved in large-scale construction or militarization in disputed territories. In a statement dated August 26, 2020, U.S. Secretary of State Michael Pompeo said the Department of State will also begin imposing visa restrictions against Chinese individuals and their immediate families involved in reclamation activities in the South China Sea. This includes several subsidiaries of China Communications Construction Company. However, Secretary Locsin clarifies he will still have to coordinate with the Department of Transportation and the National Economic and Development Authority if the Philippines has existing transactions with these particular Chinese firms covered by the U.S. sanctions. Based on reports, Macro Asia Corporation, owned by business tycoon Lucio Tan and its partner China Communications Construction Company, got the hundreds of billions of pesos contract to develop Sangli Airport in Cavite. Rosa Licos, UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people, we give glory to God.
A consumer group proposes to the Energy Regulatory Commission to distribute the 19 billion peso fine on Meralco to its 50,000 complainants. But another group explains the penalty is small compared to what ERC could have done for the public. We have Asher Kadapan Jr. who will tell us why live. Yes, Asher.
Arlene, the Energy Regulatory Commission has imposed a 19 million peso fine on the Manila Electric Company due to violations of the ERC's directives issued during the community quarantine period. The violations include failure to clearly indicate that the bills sent to customers were estimated. The ERC also said that Meralco did not comply with the installment payment arrangement mandated by the Commission, while Meralco says it will study the ERC order and file an appropriate pleading. Meanwhile, a consumer group has sent a proposal to the ERC to distribute the 19 million peso fine that may be collected from Meralco to the 50,000 customers who were affected by the bill shock. According to Attorney Victorio Mario Dimagiba, President of the Laban Consumer Incorporated, the money should not go to the ERC but should rather serve as compensation to the customers who experience inconvenience and anxiety over the bill shock.
Social justice yun na sa kanila po ibigay yung multa. Kami po, salungat kami na yung multa ibayad sa ERC dahil sabi nga po namin, ang root cause o punot dulo nitong bill shock sa malabo o ambiguous na ERC advisory.
Some netizens also expressed dismay over the ERC's intention to collect the fine without a hint of compensating consumers who were directly hit by the overcharges. Others, however, worry that the fine may be passed to Meralco's customers. The United Filipino Consumers and Commuters, on the other hand, said that the penalty is just a very small amount compared to what the ERC could have done.
Parang lang to, consuelo de bobo na may ginawa ang ERC para ipakita lang sa publiko na sila ay kumilos. Pero kitang-kita na ang violasyon ng Meralco.
Arlene?
Asher, why did the United Filipino Consumers and Commuters say that the ERC can do more than imposing such fine on Meralco?
Arlene, J.V. Haviliana of the United Filipino Consumers and Commuters says that the ERC can propose to the Department of Energy and to President Rodrigo Duterte to exercise the Constitution under Section 17 of Republic Act 12, or the National Economy and Matrimony. Based on the law, in times of national emergency, the state may temporarily take over or direct the operation of any private-owned public utility or any business for public interest. Arlene?
Thank you so much, Asher Kadapan Jr., for that report. Meanwhile, Senator Sonny Angara vows a thorough review of the 4.5 trillion 2021 national budget. Senate President Vicente Soto III formally received this week the copy of the National Expenditure Program from Department of Budget and Management Secretary Wendell Avisado. According to Angara, who chairs the Senate Committee on Finance, he is confident that they can transmit the national budget on time to President Duterte for signing. He adds the online setup during Senate hearings will not be a hindrance in scrutinizing the budgets of each agency. The budget deliberations will center on the country's response to the effects of the COVID-19 pandemic. Now here's a glimpse of what's the weather like in parts of the country. The low-pressure area inside the Philippine Area of Responsibility has intensified into a tropical storm and now named Julian. State Weather Bureau Pagasa says as of 4 p.m. today, the center of the storm was located at 880 kilometers east of Tuguegarao City in Cagayan, moving west-northwestward at 15 kilometers per hour with a maximum sustained winds of 65 kilometers per hour near the center and gusts of up to 80 kilometers per hour. Pagasa says Julian is less likely to directly cause high-impact weather over the country. However, the trough of Julian, or the southwest monsoon, will cause cloudy skies with scattered rain showers and thunderstorms over Metro Manila, Calabarzon, Bicol Region, Nueva Ecija, Bulacan, and Aurora, while the rest of the country will experience partly cloudy to cloudy skies with isolated rain showers due to the southwest monsoon or localized thunderstorms. Julian is likely to exit PAR on Monday evening. No tropical cyclone advisory is issued.
President Rodrigo Duterte orders to expedite the review and approval process of infrastructure flagship projects on water security through Administrative Order Number 32. These projects refer to the identified water resource projects in the list of infrastructure flagship projects approved by the National Economic Development Authority, or NEDA, as of February 17, 2020, and shall cover other similar projects approved by the national government. The Presidential Advisor for Flagship Program and Projects and NEDA shall directly coordinate with the head of the relevant issuing agency to establish ways consistent with the law to expedite the issuance of pertinent licenses, clearance, permits, certifications, or authorizations, while the Anti-Red Tape Authority shall monitor and evaluate the compliance of agencies with the law and shall issue notices of warning to erring or non-complying government officials or employees. Camp Crame prepares for a turnover ceremony next week. Our police correspondent Leia Ilagan tells us why.
This memorandum from the Office of the Chief Directorial Staff of the PNP states that on September 2 at 2 p.m., a turnover ceremony will be held as PNP Chief Police General Archie Gamboa retires from the service. That is a day before Chief PNP Gamboa's 56th birthday. But it will depend on the availability of the guest of honor and Speaker President Rodrigo Duterte. General Gamboa is just 4 days away from retiring, but the president has not announced who will replace the PNP leader. Now, some are saying that Gamboa's term might be extended. But for Interior Secretary Eduardo Año, a term extension is not necessary.
Ang organization naman kasi dynamic, no? Naka-layout naman dyan yung direction, plans. Kahit naman sino yung umupo dyan, itutuloy lang naman niya yung program. So, I think it's better na sundin natin yung batas para rin sa moral ng mga tao. Tuloy-tuloy yung promotion.
According to PNP spokesperson Police Brigadier General Bernard Banac, an extension of the sitting PNP chief's term happened in the past.
May mga cases na ganito sa time ni General Ronald Mato de la Rosa ay na-extend siya for a few months. Sa time ni General Aglipay ay na-extend siya for a few months. So wala namang talagang specific rule, pero ito ay vested sa kapangyarihan ng Pangulo.
As for the names of police officials being considered to fill the PNP chief post, Secretary Año said he has recommended 3 to the president. But which name will the chief executive choose? 3-star or lieutenant generals and members of the PNP command group are among the contenders. They are Deputy Chief per Administration, Police Lieutenant General Camilo Pancrasius Cascolan, from PMA Sinagtala class of 1986. Cascolan's specialty is field. He had been assigned in Iloilo before he became the Chief of Police in Taguig City. He had also been assigned in Davao Police as the Finance Chief. Cascolan is the author of the Bible of the PNP's War on Drugs Upland Double Barrel. He became an NCRPO chief for a short period of time. His misstaffed former PNP chief Oscar Albayalde relieved him from post and assigned him to the Civil Security Group. Cascolan is said to be a close friend of Senator Ronald Bato de la Rosa. Cascolan has 3 months left in the service because he will retire on November 10, 2020. Deputy Chief for Operations Police Lieutenant General Guillermo Eliazar is also among the candidates. Eliazar is from PMA Hinirang class of 1987. His specialty are both administrative work and operations. He had been assigned in the Criminal Investigation and Detection Unit Central Luzon and Central Visayas. He also became a liaison officer for UN Cambodia. He handles logistics and controllership in the PNP. He became chief of the Anti-Cybercrime Group and head of the Metro Manila Police. Just like Cascolan, he also received numerous awards and citations. Eliazar will retire on November 13 next year. Chief Directorial Staff Police Lieutenant General Cesar Hawthorne Binag is also one of the contenders. He is from PMA Hinirang class of 1987. Binag excels in military and law enforcement operations, public policy, strategy development and management, crisis management, and more. He has received numerous medals, awards, and citations, including the Gold Cross Medal for Gallantry for Good Service. He had served as Chief of Kamuning Police Station, Firearms and Explosives Office, Police Regional Office 6, United Nations Mission in Liberia, and Company Commander of the PNP Special Action Force. Binag was a member of the Board of Inquiry who investigated the Mama Sapano massacre in which 44 SAP troopers were killed. Binag had less than a year in the service because he will retire on April 24, 2021.
Ang ating pong Pangulo ay maaari pong pumili ng PNP chief mula po sa anay ng mga star rank generals. No? Ang pinakamababa ay Police Brigadier General. So maaaring mahirang na PNP chief. So ito ay nasa pataas at binibigay sa kapangyarihan ng Pangulo na siyang pumili kung sino ang kanyang kukunin or i-appoint na bagong PNP chief.
The names of 2-star generals or major generals have also floated. One of them is Directorate for Operations Director Major General Emmanuel Licup from PMA Hinirang class of 1987. He had served in PNP Finance, Comptrollership, Investigation, Intelligence, and Operations. He had been assigned in Negros Occidental, Police Regional Office 4B or Mimaropa. He had also earned awards and medals for being exemplary in service. Licup will retire on April 9, 2021. The name of NCRPO Director Police Major General Debold Sinas has also floated. He is from PMA Hinirang class of 1987. He became the Secretary of the Directorial Staff in Camp Crame. He had also served as Director of the PNP Crime Laboratory and Police Regional Office 7 or Central Visayas. Sinas will retire on May 8, 2021. The name of Police Brigadier General Vicente Danao Jr., the youngest of them all, also floats because he is known personally by the President. Danao is a product of PMA Sambisig class of 1991. He served in Davao Police during the time when Davao was recognized as the number 4 safest city in the world. He had served as Chief of the Counterintelligence Division. He became Deputy Director for Operations of the CIDG, Director of the Manila Police District, and now he is the Director of the Police Regional Office 4A or Calabarzon Police. Danao has 2 more years in the service. Leia Ilagan, UNTV, News and Rescue. We serve the people, we give glory to God.
And let's now take a closer look at the updated count of coronavirus cases in countries worst hit by the pandemic. The United States of America now has a total of almost 5.9 million cases, still on top of the countries worst hit by COVID-19, while it also has the most death cases with over 180,000. Countries in the Americas contribute almost 13 million total cases out of the global case count, while the European region has reported a total of more than 4.1 million COVID-19 cases. Meanwhile, according to reports, several European countries are experiencing a surge of cases, including France, Spain, and Germany. And for the news abroad, here's Maria Latoza reporting live from Perth, Australia.
German Chancellor Angela Merkel warns that the virus situation will become more challenging in the coming months as winter approaches. It comes as German officials urge citizens to stop traveling to countries and regions deemed high risk. Infections have surged in Germany in recent weeks, like in other European countries, though it is not as badly affected as Spain or France. Ban on major events has been extended until the end of the year. Most states in Germany have agreed to introduce a €50 fine for people not wearing masks in places where it's mandatory. Former TikTok General Manager Vanessa Pappas has been announced as the interim head of the controversial video sharing app TikTok. This comes after Kevin Mayer, who worked as chief executive of TikTok from June 1, resigned due to political tensions between the United States and China over the Chinese-owned video platform. Ms. Pappas graduated at the University of Queensland in Brisbane, Australia, and have previously worked at other online-based video companies, including YouTube and Next New Networks. Since January 2019, Ms. Pappas worked as a general manager of TikTok's US company, and since June last year, she has been supervising the Australia and New Zealand operations. Ms. Pappas said in a statement on Twitter that she is incredibly proud and humbled to take the role of interim head of TikTok, and that she has no doubt in what her team can accomplish in the next chapter. Meanwhile, Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe today announced his resignation for health reasons. He said he did not want his illness to get in the way of decision-making for the country. He also apologized to the Japanese people for failing to complete his term in office. Abe has suffered for many years from ulcerative colitis, an inflammatory bowel disease, but he said his condition had worsened recently. The 65-year-old became Japan's longest-serving prime minister last year. His current period in office began in 2012. Abe has a reputation for stimulating growth with his aggressive economic policy known as Abenomics. He will remain in his post until a successor is chosen. Other world leaders thanked Abe for his service. Meanwhile, in the USA, Laura is losing tropical characteristics, but flood threat continues. That is according to Tropical Depression Laura Advisory number 34 issued at 4 a.m. CDT today. There are no coastal watches or warnings in effect. Through tonight, Laura is expected to produce the following additional rainfall: southern Louisiana, southern Mississippi, and southern Alabama of 1 to 2 inches. The threat for a few tornadoes is expected to redevelop this afternoon into the evening across parts of the Mid-South and Tennessee Valley regions. The next complete advisory is at 10 a.m. CDT. And those are the updates here in Australia and in other parts of the globe. Back to you, William.
Thank you, Maria Latoza, live from Perth, Australia.
Researchers say bomb-smelling locusts may soon take over the jobs of traditional sniffer dogs. Here's why from Jovic Bermas.
Researchers in Washington University in St. Louis have successfully determined that locusts can smell explosives and locate where the smells originated. This new promising study from the McKelvey School of Engineering demonstrated the ability to hijack a locust's olfactory system, or sense of smell, to both detect and discriminate between different explosive scents, all within less than a second of exposure.
We proposed this idea, I think in 2016, and it got a little bit of a press that time also, that we will use the locust as a sensor, biosensor, to pick out chemicals that are important to nature. And these turns out to be explosives.
Published in the journal Biosensors and Bioelectronics X on August 6th, researchers explained that through biorobotic sensing system, they were able to detect locusts firing neurons and convey that information to identify what exactly they are smelling. Barwani Raman, professor of biomedical engineering, said, "We didn't know if they'd be able to smell or pinpoint the explosives because they don't have any meaningful ecological significance. It was possible that they didn't care about any of the cues that were meaningful to us in this particular case." Raman added,
You know the story about the canaries in the coal mines? So in old days, I think people used to take a small bird with them when they enter coal mines because if there is any toxic gases present, the idea is that the bird would die first. So if the bird dies, then you have to get the hell out of them. So it's kind of a sensing system of that particular nature where you use the biology as a proxy, a substitute to tell you whether something is there or not.
Biomedical engineers decoded locust's sense of smell through OFW's logical operation. This allowed them to determine what a locust was smelling in different settings. These short-horned grasshoppers in the family Acrididae were exposed to a diverse set of explosive vapors such as TNT, DNT, RDX, PETN, and ammonium nitrate. Researchers found their neurons responded differently to this highly reactive substance. In order to optimize the system for transmitting and recording the locust's brain activity, the scientists will have to attach electrodes that will not hinder locust's movement. With the help of these tiny electrical conductors, the neuronal activity of locust was resolved into a discernible odor-specific pattern within 500 milliseconds after exposure to an explosive smell.
We are actually pushing that particular frontier of interface between engineering and biology.
Meanwhile, Professor Raman has this advice to students who wish to become a scientific expert in the future.
Have big ideas, but take tiny steps towards realizing some of those goals, and then not be afraid to fail.
Jovic Bermas, UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people. We give glory to God.
Meanwhile, in the USA, a mother of two in Portland, Oregon has decided to use her hands and creative skills in making a change. Nina Armilio tells us why.
As Black Lives Matter protests continue across the USA and in other parts of the world, after the death of George Floyd and now the shooting of Jason Blake, Taimani Reed of Portland, Oregon has designed posters in hopes that these materials would help parents and teachers educate their children about racism.
Growing up for me, a lot of the racism talks that I had were really scary because it just made me feel like I was a target, which as a Black person I am.
The photographer, brand designer, and illustrator launched her project A is for Ally, a collection of her self-designed posters which focuses on the ABCs of acceptance. The aim is to tackle scary things in a sweet way. The artistic mom, married to a white man, developed her concept by asking local teachers, principals, and BIPOC or Black, Indigenous, and People of Color families what words they feel are important to include on the awareness posters.
I reached out to other parents in my community, Black parents, BIPOC parents, white parents. So many people were at a complete loss, and then when I was able to release this, it seemed to take a weight off of our collective shoulders of oh, okay, we have a tool now.
Taimani can't be at the front line of the protests, but she believes that her voice can reach places the protests can't.
Every voice has a place, but I'm a breastfeeding mother. I'm not going to be on the front lines of protests. I can't be tear gassed because that'll go straight through me to my child. but I can draw a pretty picture that helps people learn things. So I feel like my voice is going into other areas that the protests might not get.
Taimani is also collaborating with a former teacher and founder of Operation Back to School, which donates backpacks and school supplies to students in need, which include A's for Ally posters, which attribute each letter of the alphabet to words like ally, black, colonization, diversity, equality, fragility, gentrification, and more. The A for Ally creator believes that everyone has the responsibility to all babies naturally, and the best way that we can do that is by changing the way we are teaching and talking to children, she says.
And if we change the way we are teaching our children, then we can literally change the world.
Nina Armilio, UNTV, News and Rescue. We serve the people. We give glory to God.
And those are the reasons behind it is August 28, 2020. I am Horilin Delgado. Because we need to know, we will always ask why.
And I am William Theo. We serve the people. We give glory to God.